If you are new to our channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
With fall being here, pumpkins are a staple of fall in North America.
Right.
So and many people think that, and may just be lack of education or a variety of different reasons. You buy a pumpkin at the grocery store or at the farm, you carve it up, you put a candle in it, and happy Halloween, and away it goes.
Some people call fall decorative squash season or something like that. So, yeah, definitely, it's definitely the time of the year for that. And like you said, sometimes you carve it or you put it next to a straw bale on your front yard, whatever. But pumpkins are interesting because they're basically only native to North America.
And just a little, here's a fun fact type of thing. Pumpkins were not always used for Halloween or for carving.
Right. So jack-o'-lanterns were created by the Irish, mostly the Celtic people. And what they did is they carved turnips.
And some potatoes.
So they carved turnips and potatoes, which makes sense because that's what they had. And what they would do is then they would put, not necessarily a candle, but like a hot ember in it. And they would use that to ward off bad spirits near All Hallows Eve.
There you go.
So then the Irish people immigrated to America, just like many people immigrated to America. And they brought that tradition, but then somehow they found these pumpkins and were like, cool, these are bigger and better. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
But there's many other things in which you can do with a pumpkin and many different other varieties than the traditional orange jack-o'-lantern that we're familiar with in the grocery store, at the pick-your-own-farm or the farm stand.
Definitely. So one thing that comes to mind mostly is to bake with your pumpkin. People are very familiar with pumpkin pie. That is something. Now, you would not typically use a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin for that. You would use a sugar pumpkin or a pie pumpkin.
It can be done.
It can be done. It's going to be a little bit stringy. So you would have to really cook it down, really blend it up. It's not ideal, but if you have, say you just happen to have a lot of these pumpkins, then go ahead and do it. There's no problem with it.
And a jack-o'-lantern here is somewhere between 10 and 50 pounds. A sugar pie pumpkin actually is nature designed. It has a higher sugar content, designed for more edible consumption. And they're between 6 and 8 pounds.
And one thing to note is that if you buy canned pumpkin, it's actually not pumpkin. It's a variety of squash. Mm-hmm. Not that it's not going to taste like a true pumpkin. It's very similar to a pumpkin, but it's just a meatier squash that's grown.
Which we're accustomed to in North America because that's what we've grown up on.
And it's just more orange. Like when we make pumpkin pie from homegrown pumpkin, it's a little bit more brownish looking.
It's like tan.
Yeah, it's like tan.
Yeah, like raw meat color. I know it's a terrible comparison, but that is the color. We're not used to the bright orange crayon color pumpkin pie that we see in the store.
Tastes the same.
Yes.
But it's similar.
And in the southern portions of the United States, they use sweet potatoes because pumpkins are not that prevalent down there. And then also, some people will take their butternut squash and do the exact same thing as they would with pumpkin pie, or with pumpkin, and make butternut squash pie, and it's the same kind of concept. So you can bake with it. And there's a variety of, from the little teeny tiny wee bee pumpkins or jack bee little pumpkins, those are edible, the little decorative ones, all the way up to all pumpkins are edible, and there's dozens upon dozens of varieties.
Pumpkins.
Yeah, Cinderella pumpkins. Dozens of varieties of pumpkins in which...
And don't forget, I feel like that guy in Forrest Gump now, you can make pumpkin bread, pumpkin bars, pumpkin muffins, pumpkin, all sorts of stuff. So definitely think about that. You know, if you have some pumpkins, find a good deal. You can do a lot of stuff with them. Now soup, pumpkin soup is good. You can also, we cooked our soup in a pumpkin. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of fun.
You clean it out, you create a bowl,
you bake
and then you put your ingredients in there and you cook it. And then as you dig the ingredients out, you scrape the side of the walls to get some of that pumpkin, the meat there, to incorporate it in
and
the
I think
soup.
we added like leeks, some broth, and some other stuff. So that was good.
If you search pumpkin soup in a pumpkin on YouTube, the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden, you'll find that video.
Mm-hmm. And then just any sort of other cooking you could do. You could just take the pumpkin, puree it, make it into pumpkin soup, like a butternut squash soup. Definitely delicious.
Like many vegetables, a pumpkin is low carb, good for you. So that's a plus.
You could roast the pumpkin too, and just put like different spices on it, some oil, butter, whatever.
So let's talk about preserving. There's one aspect of preserving a pumpkin where you take the actual unit and store it in a cool, dry place, basement, somewhere in that nature. We've had them last from October to early March, where we've stored them in an unclimatized basement. And we had a white pumpkin that we found, and we used it for demonstration purposes for kids, and that lasted over a year before it started to go bad. But let's talk about that's one way of storing it. The other ways are you can can the pumpkin and you can freeze the pumpkin. So let's talk about the safe ways in which we can do this.
Sure. So if you're going to can or freeze a pumpkin, you want to peel it. You want to get that peel off. And then obviously remove any seeds, any of that stringy stuff, whatever. When you can it, you need to pressure can it because it is low acid. And then you need to cut it into like 1-inch cubes.
We want to peel it too.
I said that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you want to peel it. So you want to peel it, cube it, and then you're going to pressure can it. You cannot water bath can a pumpkin. You have to use a pressure canner. So if you don't have a pressure canner, don't want to invest in one, don't want to take that route, you can freeze it. You can do whatever you want at that point with it. You still want to peel it and you want to cube it, but you could.
You still need to cook it down?
You need to cook it down.
Okay.
But you could puree it or you could leave it cubed. If you leave it cubed, it's going to get mushy in the freezer because once you cook it down, it gets different consistency. But and then once you have it frozen or canned, it's nice. You can pull it out. You can puree it to make pumpkin pie. You can puree it for soup. You can just do all sorts of stuff with it. Make it with some lentils or some beans. It's quite delicious.
Couple of things with that. One, if you pressure can a quart jar of pumpkin, that is the amount that you need for a pumpkin pie. So 1 jar, 1 pie.
Right.
You've got to add all your other ingredients, but that's the measurement. 2, whenever you freeze the puree, it is best or recommended that you freeze it in quantities that is a one and done use. You're not thawing it out, taking so much, freezing it back up and putting it back. The same amount you would need for a pie, put in a zip top bag, that type of thing. So it's all used one time. It's not repetitive thawed and freeze.
Right, that's correct. So you want to figure that out.
And we've grown pumpkins in our garden, and you can find the videos. We grew a Jardel pumpkin. We grew 3 of them. They're about 3-inch thick walls. They're a bluish gray pumpkin, beautiful pumpkin, sweetest pumpkin pie that you ever have eaten.
It's a pretty pumpkin too.
And such smooth puree. There's no stringy whatsoever. Those pumpkins are designed for that type of application. Jardel is one, and then there's Cinderella. And there's several other varieties that have that very thick internal wall that is very, very good for the cooking application.
Right, and then so you also can make pumpkin flour.
This is good for your jack-o'-lanterns here,
right?
Because it doesn't matter.
Yep. So if you have a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin, you want to cut it up, dehydrate it. You can make your own pumpkin flour, and you can make pumpkin seed flour. And both of these are considered low carb. They have a lot of fiber in them. If you do bake with them with something like pumpkin flour, if your recipe calls for 1 cup of flour, you're only going to use a 1/4 cup of that and then 3/4 cups of a different flour.
So the best way in order to dehydrate a pumpkin is peel it, de-seed it, and then take the flesh and put it through a food processor to a small chunky consistency. Then layer it on your dehydrator tray. If you have a fruit roll-up tray, that's even better so the particles don't fall through, but it will work either way. And then once the pumpkin is dry based on the density, the moisture content, 12, 18 hours, whatever the case is, then you take and you puree it into a coffee grinder to a powder consistency. And then you can use it as pumpkin flour. Pumpkin seeds are the same way. Let them dry completely, pulverize them to a powder, and you can use them. And you can put a little bit in your smoothie, too. You're not going to notice, oh, this is pumpkin. But it does add that low carb, that extra
You can
fill.
make pumpkin smoothies.
Yes, you can.
Yep. So, yeah, you can make pumpkin smoothies. All sorts of good stuff you can do with the pumpkins.
And the seeds, you can roast those and all that type of thing with the seeds as well. And you want to, if you get a good pumpkin, let's say for the Jardel, we'll use our example, we saved those seeds. We had 1.5 pounds of pumpkin seeds in which we saved because they were such a good variety to grow. And we were fortunate enough with those Jardels, we had 2 seeds left from 5 years ago that we planted, and those 2 germinated, and we ended up with 45 pounds of pumpkin off 3 units. 3 pumpkins were 45 pounds total. All 3 of them added together. So, yeah, there's a lot of different places you can go and get your pumpkins, grocery stores, specialty stores, pick your own farm. But if you're intending to use it for a specific purpose, find out what pumpkin is best. Those pumpkins that we've talked about, the meat pumpkins, the jack-o'-lantern, all of those are available in the area. You just need to know what they're used for. And some people will buy those specialty pretty pumpkins not knowing that they are used for edible consumption. Many people think those are specifically grown for decorative purposes on the porch, patio, or deck. And then at the end of the season, they just throw them away and nothing more is said. But those are used for eating. Now, if you use them for decorative, if they get a freeze on them, they're pretty much no good because they're going to concave on themselves. They're going to get bad. So keep that in mind if you're going to buy them to use them to eat them. That's what we'd recommend. Thank you for checking out the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener radio show. For more, go to the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com for full-length in-studio video and podcast replay of Season 1. Season 2 underway and added weekly. Tweet us at TWVG Show or hashtag TWVG to be part of the program.